There it goes. And it starts the recording already. Good evening, friends who are entering to join for Computation Layer this evening. Very good to see you all today. This is my friend Adam, who'll be co-hosting here, monitoring the chat.
Yeah, hey everyone. So glad you're here. Here in the end of the year, willing to learn some new things. We love to see that in teachers, right, Bob? Just never stop learning new things.
It never ends. And I'm kind of looking over at the side here to see if there's any names we know. Sometimes there's people we see and know. So we know your time is valuable. We'll give people a chance to pop their heads in and say hello. Stephanie, thank you for sharing that information with us. In fact, for everyone, if you would like to, what's your current role in education? You can see my screen. What grade and where are you from? So we'll take 3 minutes or so just to break the ice with who's here. Let us know anything about yourself. What's your role? Where are you from? And then we'll
Yeah.
introduce
What?
ourselves and dive in.
Yeah.
Romania already. We have
Woohoo!
someone who wins. It's always a
Love it.
contest to see who's furthest away. No, wait a minute. Romania, I got to think. It is,
The
is
furthest
it the
away from where,
morning?
Bob?
I got to say 2 in the morning in Romania.
We'll have to ask. Agnes, what time is it in Romania right now? Awesome.
Thank you to everyone else who's saying hello. You can't beat
Yeah.
Romania people, but we're glad you're here.
Yeah, we see you've got people on the East Coast. We've got
Almost
some
2
in the
a.m. in
Midwest.
Romania. Yeah, we're all over.
That's great.
And Australia. We have an Australia. We usually get overseas people. It's always nice.
Yeah, welcome, Beck. Yeah, glad you're here. See a couple from Arizona popping in out there.
Um, we are all Germany.
I have a daughter in Phoenix myself, Bob, out there. So shout out to
Oh,
Arizona.
fantastic. I've my friend I grew up with lives in just outside of Phoenix, Gilbert. No, he lived in Gilbert. I think he just moved actually, but I think he's still in Gilbert.
Yeah, awesome. And here
So,
we hit Canada and Germany. Awesome. Is it Claudia from Germany? What time is it? Oh, 1 a.m. She already answered it. That's great. We'd love to hear it. 1 a.m. Thanks for your commitment,
that's
Claudia,
that
to be
that's
here at
commitment.
1
They win the
a.m.
commitment
It is.
prizes.
That's
They
right.
definitely win the
Love
commitment
it.
prizes. Folks, we'll give it just another minute or so for people to wander in. Feel free again to introduce yourself. Tell us what is your current role in education? Where are you from? Just be able to chat. We will be using the chat for questions today. Hopefully, you're able to see my screen. Just a little pro tip to people in this webinar. This is a webinar where we will be sharing information, but also we'll be building. And you're going to have to decide if you want to watch me build and try to build with me, which can be tricky. But if you have a dual screen situation or somehow you get your windows to play nice, that's possible. Or you could watch the webinar, record it, maybe watching your phone, and then try to emulate the moves later. So you're going to have to decide how you're going to do that because it can be cumbersome to watch and do at the same time. So think about how you're going to do that later in the session. Are you a doer or a watcher? It's totally up to you. Some people like to take paper notes and then come back to it later. And
Yeah.
we've been told that when these webinars end, you receive the recording. I think it's pretty quick. I think even by the
hmm
next day, I tend to have it. Maybe even at night, I get it sometimes. It comes pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, at the end there'll be a short survey and we ask you to fill it out. And then after that, you can get a certificate of attendance if that's helpful for you. And also a link to the video will be sent your way. So if you wanted to slow down and kind of do it again, that is up to you.
Fantastic.
So
We'll give about 60 more seconds for our friends who have just entered. We have about 30 people so far in here. What's your current role in education? Where are you from? Someone's doing AI notes, I see. Okay, well, friends, it is the top of the hour. We do want to respect your time, everyone who's come here on time. So this is Introduction to Computation Layer. In fact, Adam, let's go ahead and put the link to the activity. Go ahead, let's go ahead and put that in there. There's an activity where you can follow along here. This is a webinar, so camera and mics are off. We will say, however, there's a chat available. There's also a Q&A button, but the chat is public, and Adam is here to take care of the chat and answer your questions. So hello to everyone who is here. My name is Bob Lochelle. I've been working with Amplify and even the Desmos community since around 2015. I've done this webinar now multiple times, and I find it's very popular, and hopefully you find some use in it as well. My chat monitor tonight is Adam. Adam, go ahead and tell the folks about yourself.
hi everyone. My name is Adam. I I was a high school teacher for 10 years in math, and currently I work at a large university here near Chicago, working with pre-service teachers and sharing the Amplify and Desmos love. How
Mhm.
about you, Bob?
So I always try to spread the Desmos and to amplify love, especially. So just to let you know, I'm a high school math teacher as well. I teach Algebra 2, AP Statistics. This is my 29th year in the classroom, and I can't believe I just said that in public. So, but been building activities for many, many years, and I'm excited to share some teacher moves with you here. So let's just take a look. I'm going to take a look at where we are within the activity space here. Okay, let's see where everybody is on full screen. Again, Adam, just keep on putting that activity code in the chat for the first couple minutes so we can see people. See, we have about a whole bunch of people are in the activity, but if you want to follow along with the different screens, you definitely want to be in the activity. Join the activity, go ahead and sign in. These are screens that you'll be able to follow along with, because what we're going to start with today is we're going to deconstruct some screens, talk about what's going on, and then we will do some building together. So you do want to be in the activity with us. Okay, see a whole slew of people. I'm also going to anonymize you here. Okay, make sure everyone's anonymized. So you definitely want to be in the activity here with us. Okay, in fact, as you're doing that, I'm going to access screen 2 as well. So you should be able to move to screen 2. So this is Introduction to Computation Layer. Again, this is a webinar, so cameras and mics are off. If you have questions for the chat, if you have clarifying questions, feel free to ask Adam in the chat. Screen 2 is going to ask you where in the world you're from. So feel free to move that dot around. Let us know where you're from. We'll work through a few screens together as people get themselves ready within the activity. I see we have 28 students right now in the activity. Actually 22 in the activity right now, but that's totally okay. Screen 2, where are you from? Give us an idea. Adam, is there an agenda as well that you want to give out? I think is there a digital agenda as well?
There is. I'll put that in the chat
Yeah,
next.
we'll do that as well. The agenda is helpful because it will have resources, especially for after this session, for you to think about and reflect upon and move your learning forward. So there's an agenda handy. There's also an activity here ready for you to go. So let's take a look. Screen 2, where are people from? So the overlay here is just wonderful. So let's do a full screen project where people are from. Yeah, for the most part, East Coasters, West Coasters, Australia. I know we had someone from Romania earlier. So we kind of are circling the bottom, going around the middle bottom half of the country here. And we shared with the class. Fantastic to see everyone on this evening. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to sync you to a couple screens here. So I'm going to have you sync with me to screen 3. So let's just talk about what we're going to do today. So the agenda today is what we're going to do is we're going to find connections created by this thing called computation layer. If you don't know what that is, by the end of this hour, hopefully you'll have some idea as to what computation is and what the power of it is. Practice writing some code, baby steps. I'm going to show you a few small actionable steps and hopefully leave you in a place where you can find and research on your own, places where you can get more information, a chance to practice your skills, and show you resources to continue your learning. And usually when I do this session, there's about 10 minutes, 12 minutes left at the end for questions and chat, and hopefully we will do that as well today. So that's what this today is all about. Things that are not on the agenda. So right now I'm using the teacher dashboard to move from screen to screen. We're hoping that coming to this webinar that you are somewhat proficient in using Amplify activities. Maybe you've built some activities on your own, and now you're looking to do next steps in building your activities. We're not going to talk about finding and assigning activities. There is something called Polypad, virtual manipulatives, that we do offer webinars on that every quarter. Those are webinars I've done in the past. So just be on the lookout for new versions of the webinar that you can learn about Polypad. And this is also not about advanced computational layer. And I'm actually going to add another piece here, something else that's not in the agenda. There's oftentimes a clamor in this one to learn how to do self-correcting activities or self-checking activities. That's also not in the agenda. Hopefully, if you do a little bit here about some actionable moves, you'll have enough information where maybe you can research those things. But I'll be honest, as someone who's written activities, building self-checking activities is tricky to do, kind of problematic at times. You really have to take a deep dive and think very intentionally about what you want to do. So that will also not be on our agenda. We're going to learn some small moves today. Okay, so here's what we're going to start with. In my activity here, I'm about to release you to 5 screens. In fact, let's go to screen 5 together. And let's take a look at screen 5. Okay, let's take a look at screen 5 here. Make it larger here. Okay. So as you go through this activity, so we're going to do 5 screens together. As you go through the activity, try to spot places where we made connections between components, like we did here between the table and the graph. So let's show this here. So I see a table. It says radius and height. So let me put in 2 and 3. So that's an example of a connection, and that connection is made using computation layer. The table is able to take the information and talk to the graph, which then does show the cylinder that we need. So this is an example of computation layer. One component talking to another component and sharing information. So I'm about to release you to more screens. I'll give you about 5 minutes to think about where are the connections. So for about 5 minutes, just play on your own. And then eventually in the chat, we're going to recap, talk about what we've learned. So let me go back to my teacher dashboard here. I'm going to take you all the way through the screen 9. So screens 5 to 9 right now are totally open for you to experiment with, play with, and think about those connections. If I didn't have a chance to welcome you earlier to this webinar, welcome. Thank you for being here on it's a cold Thursday evening outside. Thursday, what is it? Monday evening outside of Philadelphia. I'm thinking it's Thursday already, that close to the holidays. I notice we have people sort of all over the screens right now, hopefully finding those connections. Thank you, Adam, for sharing the link again. We are currently in an activity. The link is there on the screen. Please join us. And again, your task right now is to think about where are things connected in these screens. Say about 2, 3 more minutes to play. And actually, as we're waiting for people to try things. So by show of, let's show by emojis. Give me a thumbs up if you've attempted to do some computation layer on your own before. Has anyone here attempted to do some computation layer programming on their own? Feel free to use the emoji reactions to give a thumbs up if you've attempted that. I see some now. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. And actually, let's do this. If you've never tried computation layer at all before, and this is brand new to you, why don't you give me the, I think there's a heart reaction. Let's do the heart reaction. If this is brand new to you, oh, fantastic. Thank you. So we have a nice variety of people. Some people brand new to this. Well, welcome. That's fantastic. Thank you, Dara, for doing that in the chat. And again, the chat is available. All right, last chance to try all screens from 5 to 9. If you're brand new to computation layer, that is totally okay. We welcome you into this space and hope you enjoy what you're about to see. Okay, friends. So now what I'm going to ask you to do at this point is in the chat, tell me one observation you found from screens 6 through 9. What are some things you noticed that were connected? Some things that you thought, oh, this is where computation layer was being used. How were things connected in some of the screens? So go ahead and take a moment in the chat. Share something you noticed in screens 6 through 9. Answers to the names. Yes. Why do we want your name? Yeah, name shows up. Love it. So we can carry over things from one screen to another. Doesn't have to be just limited to one screen. We can take a response from one screen, leverage it on another screen. Move the dot and change the graphs. Yes, I noticed that, right? Yes, moving the dot around. That was on screen, I think 8. Ah, the button opened the door. Ah, yeah, slope and initial point. Thank you all for these wonderful observations. There's a whole bunch of different things going on. So just like on screen, in fact, let me get my cursor back. Just like here on screen 8, let's look at screen 9. So I see what is your name? I see Bob. And right now it doesn't seem like anything happened. But if I go to screen 7, oh, it says, hi there, Bob. So somehow my name was carried over from one screen to the next. We also have an action button here, a try it button. Opens the door and stick figure man comes out and waves hi. We're not going to talk about how to do that cool animation today, but it is kind of cool. So we can take information. We can have action buttons that do things. I'm going to show you how to use an action button in one interesting way, actually 2 interesting ways today. I think you'll find helpful. Screen 8, move the point. So what did this do? Oh, wait a minute. We're going to match the line. So we got to think about where this went. And I always get this backwards. I always forget which is which. So if I remember, yeah, the one is the slope, one is the y-intercept. It's all set to go. And we can move it all around. Yeah, we can make one the slope. So I think if I put it at 2, 2, it has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 2. Yeah, the x-coordinate is the y-intercept of right graph. And so the x is the y-intercept. Okay, so the x is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept. So I need this to be at -4, I guess. -4 and the slope of what? 2 or 3 or something like that to match it up. So I need to be at -4, 3. I always forget the order in which that is. I appreciate Casey putting that in chat. You're going to learn how to make these communicate today. This will be one of our actionable moves. And on screen 9, it goes a little bit next level, right? So I'm going to guess many people in this room don't use polar coordinates all that much, but that's okay because we can play around with the polar coordinates and see what's happening here and figure out how do we fill that box up. Oh, I'm getting so close to filling it. And oh, that looks like I'm just about there. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, there it is. There it goes. So we could play around that. We're not going to play around with polar coordinates. I know the second I say polar coordinates, some people get scared off and think, oh, I have to think about this. No, we're going to do small actionable moves, which hopefully capture everyone. Okay, so we're going to start to build in a moment. But again, the idea here is that we have components within screens here that we want to have talk to each other. And computation layer is the background language that allows that to happen. So let me move out of here. Okay, so hopefully there's no questions I don't see in the chat, Adam. No questions so far, and that's fine. Okay, so the first part was to discover a little bit. Now we're actually going to build. So if you bear with me for a moment, I'm actually going to minimize this screen. I'm going to switch to an activity that I have built before that is called Intro to CL. So Adam, I shared that link with you if you don't mind sharing that with the chat. So now I'm going to give you an activity that we're going to deconstruct and we're going to build in the computation layer. Okay, so Adam has sent you this activity. So hopefully if you open it, you'll get to where I am here. This is also the part of the webinar where you need to make a decision. So you have access to this activity we're giving you. You can watch and try to do this with me. You can watch, take notes, try to do it later, or you could watch, do the recording. It's totally up to you. I would say ideally, if you're trying to watch and do this with me, maybe you have a dual screen situation. That might be the best way for this to happen because it's tough to go backwards and forwards. And in all of my moves, if you need me to rewind 10 seconds, if you miss something, Adam will let me know. If I need to go backwards, he will let me know via the microphone if I need to go backwards. So I'll let this linger for about another 30 seconds so everyone can get the activity first of all. But just to give you a little spoiler alert here, our goal in about the next 30 minutes or so is to do 4 screens with actionable moves. And I've chosen moves that I hope run the gamut of some basic things you might want to be able to do. All right, so I have this activity. I would like to edit this activity. And don't worry about editing this activity. You can't break it. This is now your copy that you can deal with. Hopefully you're in your own Amplify account and you're ready to go. So as a reminder, the way you edit an activity is here under the 3 dots. Under the 3 dots, I can edit the activity. I'm about to click it and we're going to edit this activity together. All right, let's go to edit. So I'm assuming that at this point you are somewhat familiar with being able to edit activities. Okay, so we have all of our screens. We're ready to go. So let's take a look at screen 1. So screen 1, I'm going to preview, and this one should look familiar to you. This is the one where if we move the point, we are trying to match the line. So basically, I have this point here that I would like to have talk to the other graph. So here's the idea. I have a graph on the left-hand side that I would like to have talk to the graph on the right-hand side. And I would like for it to get the information of the X and the Y coordinate of that point, move them over to the right-hand graph, and have those things become the slope and the y-intercept. So how do we do that? All right, let's take the deep dive here. All right, so I'm going to move to screen 2 here. So if you notice, screen 1 already has the computation layer in it, but we want to build it. So I'm going to screen 2. So here's screen 2. I'm going to preview it. So notice on screen 2, if I move this point, that line doesn't move because right now the two components are not communicating with each other. We need to tell the activity that we would like these two components to communicate with each other. So here's how we do it. First of all, we need to give these components names. So we need to be able to say, hey, take that graph, take the point, and move it over to this graph. And here's how we do it. I'm going to be doing a good bit of zooming tonight. So if you look on the top here, it says name this component. Right where I'm hovering here, it says name this component. You notice both of these say name this component. Now, you can name the components whatever you like. You can call them Ernie and Bert. You can call them Fred and Ethel. I'm dating myself when I say all that. I will tell you what works for me. Oftentimes, if something is a graph component, I'll call it a graph. If something is a table, I call it table. And usually I use the screen number to help differentiate them. So I might say graph 2 or table 2 or button 3 if it was on screen 3. Here, though, I get a little bit of an issue in that I have two graphs. So here's what I'm going to call them. I'm going to call this one on the left graph left. Okay, I filled this in with graph left. And on the right, I'm going to call this graph right. Again, you're going to call those whatever you want, but just to have something that makes sense, I'm going to call this graph left. I'm going to call the other one graph right. The capital is not significant, Nancy. Whatever you call it, you're going to notice in a moment that that is not going to be a significant thing. I just think that that's something it runs into itself if I don't use a capital letter there, but that's totally up to you. As you start building activities, you'll learn your own style. Okay, so let's unzoom just a little bit because it's looking a little bit messy right now. So first of all, let's see what's been built for us already. Let's look at this graph on the left. I'm going to edit the graph, and I notice that there's a point here, x1, y1. So I need to tuck that away. That point is called x1, y1. We want to take the values of x1, y1 from this graph, and we would like to pull them into the graph on the right-hand side, which I'm now going to click and look at it. I want them to become the M and the B. So I would like X1 to become the slope and Y1 to become the y-intercept. Actually, if I think about that, I think actually the example was the other way around. Okay. I saw something in the chat about don't use spaces. Yeah, don't use spaces. You're setting yourself up for messiness if you try to use spaces. Don't use spaces. Okay. All right. So we're all set up. We want to take X1, Y1 from the left graph, bring it over to the right graph, and those will become the slope and the y-intercept. Okay. So where do we code? So the coding only needs to occur in graph right. Graph right is going to pull information from graph left. So here's where you do it. Let me do another zoom here. On every screen, you may have noticed this button here on the side. And look on the far right of my screen here. These little double brackets, backwards brackets, or the braces rather. This is where you edit computation layer. This is where you're going to type in all the commands you want to use in order to get things to talk to each other. So let's click that and let's see what happens. So if you click this, I end up with a place to edit. So this is where I'm going to edit the computation layer script. This is where I'm going to put the coding in. Now, here's what I'm going to start with. And again, I'm going to zoom a little bit so you can see this pretty well. Oops, doesn't like that. Okay, we'll go that big. Okay, so notice where I'm typing here. So I'm just going to type a little bit so you can see where I'm typing. Okay. Before I do any coding, I'm going to write myself a note where I'm just going to plan out what I'm going to do. So to do that, I'm going to use a pound sign. Now, the pound sign does not actually code anything. It's just where I'm going to organize my thoughts. It allows me to think what's going on here. So I want to take X1 from graph left, and it will become the B on graph right. Thank you. Start with the number sign. Yep. So I'm just storyboarding my ideas. So I'm going to take X1 from graph left. It will become the B on graph right. So I'm just storyboarding what I want to do here. Conversely, I also want to take, Y1 from graph left, and it will become the slope on graph right. And I see the chat is kind of active. So Adam, stop me if I need to do anything or if you see any goofiness. Okay. Oh, so why the underline? Thank you, Nancy. So just so you know, when you type in this area, it won't do subscripts. So the way you have to acknowledge the subscript is by that underline. Thank you for saying that, Nancy. So it does not automatically do subscripts within the computation layer script. That underline is going to mean subscript to us. Thank you for pointing that out. That's big. Awesome. All right, ready to code? This is a big moment. We're about to code. I think this is one where I'm just going to type the command first, and then we're going to deconstruct it. So I'll type it. We'll take a step back, see what's going on. Okay. We would like number. And now I want you to notice something here. I'm going to start with number, but notice anytime I type a computation layer command, this list comes up of things that make sense. So computation layer is saying, hey, do you want to talk about numbers here? Oh, yes, I do. So I can even click it. So number M. So the slope that I want on this screen called graph right. Well, where do I want to get it from? I want to get graph left. Oh, another thing happened here. Notice I started typing graph left and it gave me this drop-down box. I want graph left. And what do I want from graph left? I want dot number. And the number I'd like is Y subscript 1. All right. Now let's take a step back and look at that command. So this is the general syntax we'll be using within computation layer. So within graph right, I want to define a number. I want to define a number called M. It's going to replace the M that currently exists in the graph. The number M I want to use in graph right, I'm going to get it from graph left, and that happens to be a number called Y1. This is generally the syntax. Notice the use of the period here. Graph left dot something, dot a number. It could be some other things as well, which we'll see as we go along. Okay. So let's take a look at the next piece. Let's do our next part. We also have to get the y-intercept here. Number. Notice number. This is really helpful, I find, that this little drop-down box comes up whenever you start typing. It really saves you a lot of coding and thinking in your coding. Kind of anticipates what you want. Number. This time B. M and B. I want it to come from graph left dot, again, a number, X underscore 1. So I have done all the coding. And this thing called graph right, the slope will come from graph left. It'll be whatever Y1 is. I also have the y-intercept, which is B. We will get that from graph left. It'll be whatever X1 is. So it's a lot at first, but I would suggest maybe you want to write those examples down. I think that's a pretty typical computation layer command. They do get more complicated as you start taking a deep dive, but it's the idea of replacing a value in some part of a graph or someplace within some component from someplace else. And you use the dots to do that. All right, let's press done and take a peek here. Let me unzoom. Okay, so back to 100% here. So if I've done this correctly, I will tell you, I was a computer programming minor in college, and I always crossed my fingers that the coding worked. And we hope and pray to the programming gods that everything is okay. And I press preview, and let's see if I move it around. Oh, wonderful sauce. So if I put this at, let's put this at -3, 5. I should have a y-intercept of -3 and a slope of 5. And it looks like that's true. So I have taken the information from this point and now communicated with the graph on the right. So give yourself 2 claps if this is the first time you've coded something and you feel success in that. It really does. You do feel good about yourself when you do it for the first time and you have it all set to go.
Hey, Bob, can you click
Yeah.
edit graph on the graph right for a second? Just want to
Yeah.
point out one thing
Yeah.
is that here, again, I just want to point out this is important when I was first learning that here, it started with just y equals mx plus b.
Yeah.
But see, these definitions, what Bob coded, it's replacing m and b with
Yeah.
the values taken from graph left. So this is
Yes.
behind the scene what already existed.
Yes. That's very important to say. So this graph was already created with values M and B. And now we're telling the computation layer to replace those values. Okay. What would cause the X1 to get an error? Not sure, Stephanie. Not really sure. I would hope, again, on the graph left, there's an X1 and a Y1. Not sure where the X1 will get an error. Let me show you the coding again. So let's go like this. I'll show you the coding one more time. Notice the X1. Now, it defaults to those little tick marks. It puts those in automatically. Yeah, don't use quotes. So let me go backwards. Let me arrow out of it. Let me do it again. So when I wanted X1, after I did number, notice it automatically puts the little tick marks that it needs for the coding. I just need to put the X1 in. I'm not putting quotes in on my own. I'm not putting those ticks on my own. Computation layer knew that the syntax I need are the little back ticks. So yeah, using quotes, you might be using quotes or something strange there. Okay. So I didn't even close out the tick mark. So Steph, let us know if that worked for you, because there is a learning curve towards, oh, what exactly do I need to put in? Okay. I told you we were going to do 4 good examples within this. This is your first one. You have things talking to each other. I also want to point out to Stephanie and others paying attention. Let me zoom back out to again. On screen 1, you have the worked example. So it's all set to go. So you have the worked example. Now, not every screen has the worked example, but the worked example you have on screen 1. Now, something I'm already going to ask you to do as you start thinking about Desmos activities, the next time you find an activity either you made or someone else made or you find online, when you do the edit, go ahead and take a look at what's under that computation layer script and see if you can make sense of it. Now, I'll be honest, some of them are going to be a little complex and heavy, but can you find the little pieces? Because what I've found that works for me is I've taken micro moves from other activities and said, oh, I see what that does. Let me steal that line of code and put it into mine. So you'll find as you edit and look at the computation layer script, you'll get used to what they have to say. Yes, to add the second line. So yeah, I know I did this one today. You just need the second line. So I'm on the wrong one, screen 2. Yeah, you just need to add the second line. So if you wanted your students to match it to y equals what, 3x plus 1 or something like that, you could make it and make it a different color and have it all set to go. Okay. All right. Great little move. All right. So we're going to move on to a second move because we can easily get bogged down by one move. The goal is 4 good moves. And then at the end of the hour, we'll have time for Q&A. You can ask us questions and things like that. All right, let's take a look at screen 3. So here's screen 3. This is not one that you saw within your gallery earlier today. Let's preview and see what happens. So I have an inequality here for students. And my task for students is to name 2 ordered pairs which are solutions to inequality, and it'd be really nice if they were graphed. Okay. So for example, if I type in my table here, I would like to have -2, 5. And then I'd like to have 4, 1. Actually, I don't know if those are solutions or not. Well, 4, 1 definitely is not. It'd be really awesome if those ordered pairs from the table were moved into the graph. So your next micro skill is taking numbers from a table and then bringing them into the graph. And keep in mind, this could also be slope and y-intercept. Maybe you ask students slope and y-intercept. You want to bring it over to a graph. All right, so let's take a peek. So first of all, let's take a look at this graph and see what we have here. So under this graph, this is what I built. And it's important to look at how I chose to name these points. I used A1, B1 and A2, B2. So tuck those away because these points are currently called A1, B1, A2, B2. So when I go to program, the numbers I want to replace are A1, B1 and A2, B2. So tuck that one away because I'm going to forget. And I also put in my own inequality, which really does not matter here. Okay, so I want to take the numbers from the table and move them over to the graph. Okay, keep in mind the first thing we need to do. We need to name our components. So I'm going to zoom here. So here's how I name components. For the graph, I'm going to call this graph 3. Again, I prefer to call my components by their screen name just because it makes it easier to refer to, and then you don't have conflicting definitions. Graph 3. I also have here in the right-hand side a note. I can call this note 3. And I also have a table, which I will call table 3. So I've named graph 3 here, note 3 here, and table 3 here. Now, I do want to point out, it wasn't really necessary that I named all 3 of these things. The note is static. It does nothing in terms of the computation layer. But if you want to be consistent, and there are things you can do with notes with computation layer, by the way, and I'll show you how you can do that. It's just for consistency to name all the components. So I have graph 3, note 3, table 3. So the idea here is I want to take the values from the table, bring them over as number values to my graph. Okay. So the computation layer is going to happen in the graph because the graph is going to receive the information. Let's click here and edit the script. So let me show you where I clicked again. So again, I'm hovering right here and I'm going to edit this script. Okay. So let's storyboard just like I did before. Whenever my brain starts to get mushy and I forget what's happening, let's just storyboard using the pound sign here. So I'm going to get row 1, column 1, column 1 from the table. And I do realize I'm writing, when you use this type, it shows up in gray. I know that's hard to see, and I don't think there's anything I can really do to make that darker. I can do one more zoom maybe. Get row 1, column 1 from the table, and set that as A1. So I'm just reminding myself that that's A1. And I also want to get, use a space just like I did before, get row 1, column 2 from the table, and set that as B1. Now there's also a second row, but I'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, now, little pro tip here. We're going to scaffold some of our pro tips. Let's say that I'm here, I'm programming. I know that I want to grab information, but I totally forget what my different commands are. I want to point out some things that you may have noticed here on the right-hand side. Because we're using a graph component, Activity Builder says, hey, wait a minute, there is a gallery of different moves that you can use with the gallery, let me start over. There's a gallery of different commands you can use with a graph component. Here they are. So if I look here, I can scroll down. Now, I'll be honest. Some of these commands I've never used before. Some of these are above, like animation duration, I've never used before. But if I scroll down, background, bounds, correct, expression, function, hidden, you can hide components, narration, number, and some other things here. This tells you all the different things you could possibly do within a graph screen as the things you want to grab. And also notice here 11 sources. There's different things you can grab. You can grab the bounds, current X, current Y. And again, most of these I have never used. You can grab lists. So of these things, between 21 syncs and 11 sources, I guarantee I think I've used 5 or 6 of them. The rest are really advanced coding. But they're here, and if I want to learn more about them, I can click where it says documentation here, and it takes me to a website which gives you examples of every single one. So if I forget within here, and I'm going to scroll down to number, if I forget how number works, it gives me an example. It lets me know what it does. Think of it as a dictionary of the different commands. It gives me an example, and right here, I'll go ahead and try it. It gives me an example of it being used in a new activity. So there's a lot of resources here, and I know that was a lot going on there. So let me show that again. Under computation layer documentation, it shows me all the commands. And for every command on the top, this little green button invites me to try it. So if anything else, at the end of this webinar, I invite you just to go to this computation layer documentation and go shopping for some groceries. Look at the different commands and look at the try-its and see how they have it working together. For example, under number here, they say enter an x value, the x value of a point where the derivative is positive. Okay, this is a calc example, honestly, where it's positive. So I'm going to say 5, and it grabs it and does something with it. So it moves those together, and then I can move around and take a look at the coding. So notice these are all coded. The computation layer script is here and ready to go. So you can find examples that are ready to use. So I can take that coding that looks like it has a lot on it and maybe copy it for my own use. And I know I went through that very quickly to show you where's all these little micro moves and things. So there's all kinds of examples out there. So if I need to go backwards on that, please let me know. So we'll head back here in a moment. So let's go back to our task. So we got lost in the task here. All right, so keep in mind. So our goal is to grab row 1, column 1, and make them A1, B1. Okay, we're replacing numbers. I'm going to start with number. It's clickable, number, A_1, A1. Now, a little bit different here. This time I'm taking it from a table component. So let's type in table. Oh, remember I called that table 3. So that's table 3 dot. And notice I get this list here because I'm pulling information from a table. It gives me the different commands for it. And in this particular case, I want a numeric value in a cell. So cell numeric value. And now it's asking me for the row and the column. Row 1, column 1. So let's deconstruct that again. A1 in my graph, is going to come from whatever's in the table in row 1, column 1. So once you start doing these, they start to make a little bit of sense in their syntax. So let's also get B1. So let's do number, B1. And this time, same deal, table 3 dot cell numeric value. row one, column two. You got to think about rows and columns. So just like I do in my class when I'm teaching matrices, rows are like rows in the movie theater, columns are like in front of big fancy buildings, rows and columns. All right. I know I have more to do, but if I've done this correctly, this should be enough to get the first row to talk to my graph. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to press done here. Let's unzoom so we get back to where we were. Okay, let's take a peek. Let's preview. So if I've done this correctly, now something I want you to notice already happened. This is good news. The red dot that was A1, B1 has disappeared because it's awaiting instructions from the table. So in the table, if I type in -5, 6, there it is way up there. -5, 6, way up there. It did it. Yes. So the first row of my table is now talking to the graph. I love it. And also keep in mind, you can make this table slope, y-intercept. What information would you want to have students to put in that you could eventually bring over into your graph? That's fantastic. I feel doing this still many times, I still feel accomplished when it works, right? Now, I want to do the second point, which is A2, B2. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to take these and I'm going to right click, copy them. And I'm just going to leave a little space and I'm going to go down here. Now, notice the computation layer is not happy with me because I've just used A1 and B1 twice. That's okay. I'm just going to edit this. So A2 and B2, they will come from row 2, column 1 and row 2, column 2. So just a little copy, paste, and a little bit of editing does the trick there. So there's move number 2. Information from a table gets to talk to a graph. All right, I'll pause for a moment. Adam, any questions? Anything you think I need to talk about? Anything you think I should show there?
No, I think it's good. I think that one thing people, just to be clear, is that the A1 B1 was already defined, right? That was something that ahead of time
Abs.
was in your graph three. It was just,
Yep.
and that was just ahead of time. You just typed in, this is
Yep.
graphing calculator knowledge. Just you
Yep.
defined that before you started.
Yep. Yeah, so that's
That's why
very
it was.
important. So you have to define those things before you start. You have to have a graph where those are defined. So if you tried to use A1, B1, and he didn't exist, it would give you that little yellow. Let's actually show that. What's going to happen? So if I get rid of A1, B1, so I'm going to get rid of this for now. So how does the computation layer change? Actually, I still have A1, B1 there. It's still there as sliders. So let's get rid of A1, B1. Let's get rid of them all together. All right, got rid of them. So now notice my computation layer, A1, B1. Oh, wait a minute, it still likes it. Why is that? Hold on, did I mess this up? I don't want to go messing this up too much. All right, I don't want to take a deep dive in it. It actually still likes it, Adam. I'm actually surprised. Wait a minute. So it's naming them, but it doesn't know where to go with them because it doesn't have A1. It's calling them numbers, but it doesn't know what to do with them
Right,
because it
nothing's
doesn't know
happening.
it doesn't know to refer to them as an ordered pair. So they exist as values, but it just doesn't know what to do with them. That's interesting. I should probably put those back right before I forget. I'm going to put them back now because that's what's going to happen next time I do the webinar. It's going to say, where are they? And there they are. Fantastic. Okay, here's our next move. So we've done a couple moves so far. Hopefully you're feeling good. And I always look at the time because it's easy to get bogged down here. But let's take a look at screen 4. Now, screen 4 is a very quick screen. It's just a quick move. This is a draw screen. What I want you to notice here, whoever made this made a little cute little pencil. And I could say, I'll draw. I'm going to say Bob was here. Okay, I'm going to draw with the pencil. But notice the pencil is following along. It's kind of cute. The pencil is following along with my cursor. So that doesn't usually happen. So not only do we have a cursor, we have a pencil that is following along with the cursor. It feels like a ghost, right? Pencil's following along with the cursor. That's a neat little move for kids to say, oh, you get this little pencil. Although I did not program this one. It's a little bit laggy. You can see it just doesn't you can fool a little bit. So Bob was here. So how does that work? So let's go ahead and build that one in screen 5. This will be a very quick one. This will be a very, very quick one. So let's take a look at this graph. Let's see what's going on here. How did this person program this? So notice what's happening here. This person has put a picture of the pencil in there, and they also have two values called X1, Y1. Let me zoom in on that. That might be tough to see. So they have values X1 and Y1. In fact, let's move this up. X1 and Y1. And those values are being used to control the center of the pencil. So the center of the pencil, which is moving, is X1 and Y1. Okay, so X1 and Y1 plus a little bit. It's giving a little lag, so the pencil's like up above it, right? So X1 and Y1 are or controlling where the pencil appears in the screen. So how am I going to get this to work? Well, a little neat little thing here. So let's go to, now, first of all, I'm going to call this graph, what screen am I on? Graph 5. Let's call this graph 5. Graph 5 is kind of neat. And let's look at its computation layer script. Nothing here right now. So we want to control the numbers x1 and y1. So let's do number. So hopefully we're semi-proficient now with number x1. That's not surprising. Most of your commands are going to be numbers. I would say a good 2/3 of the commands I use within activities are taking numbers from here to here. So let's see. I'm taking this from graph 5 dot. Let's see what's available to me. So what's available to me? Little commands here. Current x. What current x is, it's the current x value of wherever your cursor is on the screen. So believe it or not, in the background, when you move a cursor around the screen, wherever your x and y value currently are, they're saved as values. They're being saved as values here. So current x. So x1 is graph5.currentx. So it's going to grab wherever my cursor is and say, yeah, I want to make that x1. Now, let me show you another little power move here, though. So number y1, and this is kind of the purpose of this screen. This is an unusual situation in that we have a graph that's pulling information from itself and giving that information to itself. So graph 5 is getting information from graph 5. In that very unusual situation, there's a different way you can code this. So instead of saying graph 5, I can just say this. Take it from this, from the same component. And the thing I want you to take is current y. So this dot current y. Now, this doesn't happen very often in coding, but if you're taking information from itself, you can use this. So this dot current y. And now if I do done, and I always preview, I can now see. So there's my little gray dot here. That's current x and current y. And the pencil is following wherever that current x and current y are. I like to kind of fool it, see how fast I can go and how laggy I can get to be. But it kind of full, and we can move it all around and do whatever we want to do. Fantastic. Right, so that's current x, current y. All right. Last set. And I'll be honest, I think this last set of moves, one of my favorite set of moves. This is how you get buttons to work. So if you ever thought you want to reveal a graph, if you want a button that does something, remember that button that opened the door? If you want a button that somehow reveals something or does something, buttons are really neat. So let's take a look at some buttons here. So I'm going to show you a button and then 2 distinct moves for buttons. And if I'm looking at the time, that's going to leave us in a perfect space for comments and questions at the end. All right, let's look at screen 6. Screen 6, let's preview it. Let's see what this is all about, first of all. This one has the computation layer. Press lift off repeatedly to make the pyramid rise off the ground. So let's press lift off. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and I can press. If you've ever played one of the Amplify activities called Click Battle, think about it. That's the button. Somehow you can take a button, not only have it do an action, but also count how many times it's been clicked. That's what's important to me here. I want to count how many times that button's been clicked and use that to somehow grow I hate they call it a pyramid here. We know it's a triangle. That's okay. We're going to grow the triangle. All right, so let's look at screen 7. This one's not connected. So before anything else, let's see how this person built this. Let's edit the graph. Let's see what they built for us here. So they have a triangle sitting here. They did a couple of, I'm looking at lines 3, 4, 5. They just have a couple lines with a couple domain restrictions. But here's the secret sauce. The secret sauce seems to be A. A is a slider that right now is controlling the height of this triangle. So think about what I'd like to do. I would like to click the button, and every time I click the button, I would like the triangle to go up by 1. I would like the number of times the button is clicked to be that y-intercept, really. I'd like to replace the value of A. So the number of times the button is clicked should replace the value of A. We've got it all together. All right, let's see if we can do this together. If you feel free to try it on your own if you want to. All right, step 1, name the components. We're all set. We got graph, screen 7. I have note 7, and I have button 7. So I've named all my components. Again, using the screen number works for me. It keeps me organized. All right, let's think this out. I want to take the button and the number of presses and make that the value of A in graph 7. So let's go. I'm hovering right now. Edit the computation layer script. We're all set to go. All right, let me zoom in so you can see this really well. All right, we're doing number. I told you most of your things are going to be numbers. So the number A. Now let's see here. This is a button. So button, oh, here it comes up. So I can click button 7, dot. Very important. I love that when you press dot, it gives you this menu of things that you could possibly use. And a couple of these are very useful. And the one I want here is press count. Think about that. The number of times I press the button. Press count. So the number A will take the number of times the button was pressed and turn it into the value A. To me, when in my coding, I have used press count so many times in getting graphs to reveal, in getting pieces here to move from here to here. I think press count is one of my favorites. So let's do done. Let's do preview. And I've done this correctly. Let me unzoom. I know I'm zoomed right now. That's causing some issues. So if I press lift off, I pressed 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, even more times. Love buttons and how you can use them. Yep. Buttons are pretty cool. Okay. One last extra command that you get just for free here. Staying within this one. I use button press, but there's another one I use as well. So let me go back and edit this one. So I do like press count. There's press count. Let's zoom in. But you may have noticed, back out, button 7 dot. There's another one here I really like. Time since press. What time since press does, when you press that button, a clock will start. And I can capture that amount of time. You can use that to think about a domain. You could have something reveal from one side from another using this. So time since press has parentheses because how long do you want to record the time for? It defaults to 10 seconds, but if I wanted to go up to I'll start it with 10 and then we'll see what happens there. Time since press. How is this different? Let's press done. Let's zoom back to the way it was so it looks normal. Press preview. Okay. I'm going to press lift off and watch what happens here. Time since press, 1 second, 2 seconds. So you can have things growing. So think about having a graph growing. Think about having a line go from one side to the other because its domain is coming up bigger and bigger. Think about having parabolas grow and make them larger. You can use that button. I can press it again too, and I think it's going to restart. So it resets itself. Time since press, very cool command to play around with. And if I wanted it to go for beyond 10 seconds, I can go back and edit it. Let's say, no, I want to go off the screen. Let's have it go off the screen. Let's go 20 seconds. I think that should do it. And then I can preview and have it go up, off the screen. And we will wait the 20 seconds of awkwardness as we play around with that. So friends, the goal in this webinar was to give you a few actionable small things and hopefully some commands where you start to think about things that can move together. So before we end our time together, let me go back to the original slide deck. So if you don't mind going back to the original activity that we were in, because I'm going to unpause you. In fact, I'm going to stop everything going on. So on screen 10 here, there's links to resources. So I'm back at the original activity where we started. Let me blow this up so you can see what's going on. First of all, helpful resources, the computation layer you need. You can read about computation layer in the Help Center. You can visit the documentation. You can register for more free professional learning opportunities and also support.amplify.com, all sorts of different things. And as Adam has pointed out, many of these links also appear at the bottom of the agenda. So you take the deep dive. Let's see if there's things on other screens here that I really care about. Okay. So ways to keep in touch, and I'll go backwards. Make sure you're joining our community of over 29,000 educators. I will tell you, the Amplify Classroom Facebook group is a fantastic place to see what teachers are doing with Amplify activities. Also on X and on Blue Sky as well. And thank you very much. There is a survey here, so I will leave. Adam, do you have access to this survey?
Yes, I'll drop it in the
Yeah,
chat
you got
here.
that? Okay.
And
So
then
we
I
have
do
a
have a
survey
question or
that'll
two
get
for
dropped.
you. There's a question or two for you too. A couple posts up there. I'll grab that.
Yeah, I kind of see them. Yep.
Okay.
So I see, is that for use at school at any class or just programming? You can use it as a teacher to program activities that you give to students. I'm not sure if that's a satisfying answer to what you're asking, but I've had teachers, I make activities for my math classes. So if I want to show a parabola moving, I can use the button to do that. So this is used to build activities that you could then use in classes. Mary Jean asks, can you make time since press continue? What would that command look like? Mary Jean, do you mean so press it so it continues from where it was? You like stop and start again? Is that kind of where we're headed there, Mary Jean? Let me just make sure I'm clarifying it. Uh, hmm. I don't have a good answer. The answer off the top of my head is no, it resets. So it's always timed since the button's been pressed. So if you press it again, it's going to reset to 0. I bet if you were a little clever, you could get it to do that. If you want to clarify a little bit more about what you want to do with it, I might be able to give Outland some clarity to that question. Is there a code that would tell me how many times the students clicked lift off? Yes. Is there a code? Help me tell you. What do you mean tell you, Stephanie? So you mean within your dashboard or something like that? So keep in mind, Stephanie, let me go back to the clicked lift. So if I wanted the students to keep track of how many times they did it, well, keep in mind, so let me go back to, instead of time since press, let me go back to press count. Let me do a little bit more with press count. I like press count. So we're going to go back to press count. Let me do something else with this graph. So I'm going to make a point. So I'm going to add a little secret sauce to this one. Let me make a point on my graph called, I'll put it at 4, 4. So up here in space someplace. So I'm making a point called 4, 4. But I'm going to label it. And if you don't know how to make a dynamic point, I'm just spitballing here. I can make a dynamic point, and I could call this presses equals, and if I use, I'll show you the command, and I'll kind of step away here. So notice, let me zoom in on what I just did there so you can see what I did. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, whoops, too small. So presses equals, now if you never used dynamic point before, this might be new to you, but use $signs, curly braces, and A, because that's the value A. So it's going to call that. So right now presses, it's the value of A. So right now A has a value of, so I can move it all along and I can see it. So if I went back to preview this, and I see other questions in the chat, so I don't want to dwell on this one for too long. So I can also keep a running count of the presses there on the screen if I wanted to. So if you think about like activities like click battle, and then on the dashboard, I could see who clicked the most. Is it possible to create points with a CL? Can you only update existing points in the graph? Adam, you can feel free to chime in. Those points need to exist in the graph. Those points need to exist in the graph, and then you are replacing values. I think there might be clever ways to get them from CL, but I think it's easiest if you just make them within the graph. Adam, would you agree with that? I saw you had your mic open there for a moment.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not sure I see the point of putting them in the CL side.
Yeah, I think
Easier
you're
on
probably
the
just, it's
graphs.
just like overkill a little bit. Yeah, it's just far easier to just build it within the graph. So Mary Jean, CL uses LaTeX language. So I'm going to give you a semi, maybe unsatisfactory answer here. People have asked me what the programming language actually is. It's no specific programming language. It's a programming language that was invented in the early stages of Activity Builder to try to make things efficient for the needs of building activities. So it does have some structure of its own languages. Yeah, thank you, Adam. It's its own language. But in terms of programming, I always thought structure is structure. So once you understand that it's components and that the dot identifies what you want to do with the different components, that's kind of the secret sauce here. That really leads you down the rabbit holes of where you want to go. Friends, what time is it here? So 7:56. This is the end of our hour together. Thank you very much. I hope you found one good actionable move. Again, we'll stick around for other questions. Feel free to give us feedback and watch that email where you get the recording and things like that. Mike says, points to see. I was wondering if new points can be created from current XY when the mouse button is clicked, for example. I gotta absorb that sentence. Adam, if you can understand what that's trying to ask me, please let me know. Specifically, I was wondering if new points can be created from current XY. Oh, when the mouse button is clicked, for example. Oh, you mean within the sketch one? Mike, I want to say you probably could do that. I would ask you to take a rabbit. Let me go back to the documentation. I would ask you to take a deep dive into documentation layer, and I can look up here on the top. So this is the documentation. I'm going to look up current X, and notice current X. It comes up here. It's a sketch source, but it's also a graphing calculator source. And I would ask you to probably look at the examples of things you can do. And that might be where you want to go. So you might be able to find places where that's been done. So with our short amount of time, I'm just going to leave you with that homework. Okay. Cindy, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Geometry tools. So the geometry tools, keep in mind, you might want to look at Desmo's Studio more for specifically geometry tools. If you're looking for geometry tools help, that is a Desmo Studio tool as opposed to an Amplify tool. And I know that gets kind of complicated sometimes. So I would go to Desmo Studio if you wanted geometry help. I see. For putting geometry within. Geometry does not do unless it got added. People have been asking for geometry for CL for a long time. I don't believe it's ever been added. Adam, feel free to chime in. I don't think geometry is in CL unless I'm
Not
missing
that I
something.
not that I know if it's different. It's kind of got a different setup to it.
Yeah, they would have to do a lot of different things to get those connected together, and that might be kind of problematic. Well, thank you, friends, for being here this evening. We'll stick around for about 60 more seconds. Take any more questions you might have. Thank you for your commitment to helping your students through building dynamic activities. Go forth and build wonderful things. Yes, Yasmin, you will get an email with this recording probably within the next 24 hours. And thanks again to my co-host, Adam. Always a wonderful time to run into you. Is Facebook group for to share experience with topic not only math, how about STEAM science. The Facebook group is for anything related to Amplify activities and their curriculum, which is a very broad space. You're welcome, Yasmin. Okay. Thanks again, Adam. We're going to close this one out in about 3 seconds. Friends, have a nice evening.